When it comes to the subject of morality, there's essentially two major camps I've come across. For the first camp, morality essentially is about obeying all orders from the highest authority. Typically, that authority is a god or some form of spiritual leader. While for the second camp, morality is largely a matter of assessing individual situations and responding to them in a rationally defensible way. This obviously creates a huge amount of tension between the two groups. Predictably, the religious-minded ones argue against the subjective approach to morality and vice versa. The part that gets to me personally is when the people who believe their morality is objective starts fear-mongering about the subjective crowd. It is done by trying to claim that somehow not believing morality is objective can readily create monsters. In this video, we critically examine these claims and perhaps more importantly, challenge the idea that the group claiming to have objective morality does so. The very first thing we need to challenge is the idea that the religious people are being objective themselves. This is one of those presuppositions I don't see being challenged often enough, and it bothers me a great deal. But not today. Today, we learn and prove why the religious crowd is subjective as well. The fastest way to prove this is by gathering a random sample of religious people from around the world and asking them questions about morality. The reason we need to do that is because there is a misleading sense of objective consensus that can be felt when you talk to one person or only one group. It can make it seem like they are this one cohesive unit with fixed objective answers to all of our moral dilemmas. But when you put people from different religious traditions in one room though, that illusion dies out rather quickly. This even works on people from the same sect of a religion. All you need to do is keep asking them about good and bad and watch the astounding diversity of different and disagreeing answers coming from the previously presumed objective crowd. In that moment, you will realize that their morality is only objective in the sense that first you need to believe in the same god or gods as them, then you need to believe in the same set of scriptures as them, then you need to believe in the same interpretation of the same passages from those same scriptures as them. Once all of that is done, you will agree with them. All this time, they have been calling that objective. Essentially, they are mistaking objectivity for whatever it is called when you believe the same things as someone else, so you guys end up agreeing a lot. I hope from this point onward, if you hear anyone bragging about such objectivity, you will remember to ask yourself if all the other supposedly objective religious people agree with this person on all their objective views on morality. If not, it is not objective. Please let me know in the comments if you think I'm trivializing this, but I simply cannot take this question seriously. It kinda presupposes that we are all criminally insane monsters just pretending to be good out of fear of some all-powerful authority. That simply isn't true. In fact, it is pretty much self-evident to me that I don't wake up every morning with a strong predilection to being evil. And having first-hand experience of religiosity and knowing countless religious people, I can assure you that they don't either. So in a world where, except for a fractional minority of diagnosable psychopaths, none of us are wired that way, why would you even think that we would want to be evil? I simply do not follow their reasoning on this one. The answer to that question to me is pretty simple. We aren't monsters because we don't want to be. Now, as human beings, we do have the potential to be either good or bad, or even both. How good or bad we end up becoming is often not predictable with simple metrics like one's views on morality being subjective or objective. A quick example can be the otherwise normal and God-fearing white folks from the last generation refusing to drink water from the same tap that the colored people drank out of. Many even use the same objective holy books to try and justify why race mixing was not moral in the first place. Now, both those people and their religious descendants today likely believe in objective morality. But I'm sure that simply looking at how dramatically different these two groups are from each other in terms of their supposedly objective beliefs already tells you that the beliefs are not objective to start with. On top of that, you now have evidence that we cannot predict how these two groups will respond to the aforementioned race mixing issue merely based on their beliefs on objectivity of morality. This video is not about a deep dive into subjective morality. However, I will not leave you hanging wondering how subjectivity and morality can work together. To appreciate what the subjective camp is trying to tell you about morality, let's consider the following quick example. Let's consider this map. There's two people on this map who both have heard fancy stories about a place called the Northern Pond. Now, the exact location of the pond is not precisely known. All the two people can seemingly agree on is that it is somewhere north. Obviously, this creates the ideal circumstances for disagreements. As a result, they both decide to follow their own set of navigational plans to find the northern pond. This results in two totally different paths leading to the same place. The key thing to notice here is that they don't all have to agree on the details to progress towards the end goal. What is even more fascinating is that even in this subjective path planning, it is actually possible to grade two different paths on a relative scale in a useful manner. Amazingly, once you compare two of these subjective paths, you can actually make an objective statement about which one is relatively better. A simple example can be just counting the steps and comparing that. Or we could compare the difficulty of navigating different terrain and declare one better than the other. If you understand this much, you already have the intuition to grasp subjective morality. To demonstrate that, let's imagine that north on the map is whatever we all vaguely agree is good. The south is maybe not so good. The northern pond is now that ideal good pond we all want to reach. Having gone through the previous example, it should now be very easy for you to see how two people can have differing views on moral issues while both trying to reach that ideal good pond. I hope you can also see that much like before, we can now compare these two views in various ways to determine the objectively better view like we did for the paths. For example, we could compare and see which one of them harmed the least amount of beings and things. Even in this subjective situation, I hope it is obvious to you that you can't just start moving downward and claiming that you are following an obvious route to that northern pond. Subjective morality is not to be confused for random morality. My point being that we are evidently capable of living the way I just illustrated. We have a world full of people with differing views who only agree on vague notions of good and bad. But somehow we have been able to progress from our prehistoric days to the modern digital and space age. At no point did we first require a global consensus before we marched towards progress. In fact, our disagreements often help us rethink and recalibrate our moral compass. I hope if you are one of those people who despises subjective morality, after having watched this video, you at least understand why all the fear of creating monsters and whatnot have nothing to do with subjective morality that your oppositions on this issue talk about. I hope I've been able to convince you that not even you yourself are objective, otherwise the entire religious world would have agreed with your exact views on morality. I hope we can all clearly see and acknowledge that the diversity of our thoughts and our disagreements are not to be feared and labeled as evil. All that means is that we have yet to learn a lot about a lot of things. And if you enjoy learning and growing, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. This has been the Scientalist. See you in the next video.